Infrastructure is crumbling and the problems are only getting worse. The pressure to find solutions is hot. Let's talk about why American cities have no water, no electricity, and no money to fix their infrastructure problems. Welcome to the Infrastructure Hot Seat Podcast, hosted by Chad Smeltzer.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Infrastructure Hot Seat Podcast. Today, we have Janet Cann, who is recently retired from Spartansburg Water and has been a public servant for over 40 years. Thanks for joining me, Janet.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you for the invitation.
Janet, I was seeing some of the stuff you're doing on LinkedIn, and I was like, I got to talk to her because I know she has a lot of stories and she's got a lot of history here in working in as a public servant and also in infrastructure. So how did you get started in infrastructure?
Actually, just getting into the business was at the encouragement of my father, who was a water professional. And when he was encouraging me to go into engineering, and I asked him what a civil engineer did, the first thing out of his mouth was they designed wastewater treatment plants. And I very promptly, in all my 17 years of wisdom, said, I'll never do that. And lo and behold, if almost the entire 39 of the 40 years have been in the wonderful world of wastewater with a little bit of potable sprinkled in.
Okay.
It was after I went to work at Spartanburg Water when I had exposure to collection and along with treatment is when I really got into the infrastructure and have really enjoyed working in collection systems and in the past 5 years in distribution systems.
Okay. That's fantastic. Well, thank you for your service. And then also, what did your dad do? Is he in construction or was he a part of like infrastructure
He
too?
was a chemist and he
Oh,
worked for, he was a regulator. He worked for the Department of Health and Environmental Control in South Carolina. And at the time of his retirement, he was a bureau chief over lab services and analytical affairs. So he
okay.
was a lab rat. He started
Okay.
out in a mobile laboratory, pulling it along behind him in the late 50s, and started out water quality sampling and
Okay.
things.
So, so water quality sampling, and then did you find that interesting, what he was doing?
I was very proud of what he did.
Yeah.
Particularly talking about streams and water bodies and what their health was. And he knew where there were good places and not so healthy places. And, that was right before the Clean Water Act.
Uh-huh.
So he and I have witnessed a lot of changes since the Clean Water Act was put into effect.
Yeah, that's interesting. You mentioned that because what are some of the changes that have been occurring, obviously with PFAS, lead, and all these things that are happening now? Where do you see water?
Overall, I've seen water quality improvement in
Yeah.
some of the water bodies that were really getting in very dire straits. I remember as a child the river burning. Water isn't supposed to burn.
Really?
Um, so, uh, and that was, I'm trying to think of the exact water body, but that was a big broadcast or newscast when I was a small child.
Uh-huh.
Um, I remember when I started out at the Department of Health and had limited involvement, was involvement with NPDESs. And when those NPDES permits were issued, they might have been 5 or 6 pages long or,
Hmm.
in length. Now they're a quarter to a half inch thick. They include regulation on biosolids and nutrients and much more than when it got started. I can remember what really locked me in as a career um, water professional was a coworker of mine when I was working at DHEC, just the first couple of years, that there's always going to be a need for what we do.
Right.
And we're protecting the public health. The regulations are not going to get less stringent. We're going to have to be more proactive and organized about taking care of this infrastructure and this and water in general. So that clicked with me that this was good work. This was necessary work. And the longer I've been in the business, the more I've come to realize that water professionals, no matter what side of the flush they are on, are, frontline defenders of public health. Very
That's
fast.
something I was going to say. That's something that most people do not say. It's not mentioned that often, that we're, protecting the people. Everyone needs water, but nobody really talks about how important it is to make sure that no one gets sick from the water that we drink, things like that. And that's one of the things that you know we should be promoting now, as this industry has changed over the last several decades. Now we're in a labor shortage, and we're trying to find people, encourage people to come work in this industry.
Mm-hmm.
How do you think we could pivot to better educating the industry that way?
We've never been good at self promotion. This industry
Right.
hasn't. It's out of sight, out of mind. And quite often when we are in the news, it's because of a water main break or a spill or something. We need to be better at self promotion about the good that we do and how impactful this career is.
Right.
and and start at the young age. I mean, how many children know about environmental system operators, whether it is a treatment plant operator, a collection or distribution system operator? They know about firemen, police, doctors, nurses. Have they ever heard about environmental system operators or water quality officials or protectors of the environment and public health?
Yeah.
So I think we need to get the word out about what a great career it is, what the possibilities are. I mean, it's not just engineers. We need the scientists. We need the communicators. We need the chemist. Um,
Yeah.
it really does take a village to do what we do and do it
Yeah.
effectively.
Yeah, that's the way you just described that is super important, because you brought up the thing with the school system too. My kids are young; they're in school right now, and they're not getting taught anything about environmental. They're not getting taught anything about water quality. There's nothing like that. And my kids are moving into high school now, and nothing's been said about that kind of stuff. So you're right. We need to shift the way we're presenting infrastructure, and especially utilities.
And I didn't even get into the technology
Yeah.
aspect of it as well, that is needed because treatment systems are becoming more and more technology based. Now there's artificial intelligence and machine learning where you take the data and the trends of what you've got either in your treatment process or your pump station run times or your tank levels, and you start projecting, or even if you're collecting data on where you've had failures or problems, you start projecting so you can be proactive rather than reactive.
Yeah.
So there's so many facets of this business that folks can get into.
Yeah, and that's where engineers like yourself become those problem solvers, and they look at solutions like AI and data as a way to really start, you know, helping make decisions, better decisions on how we
Mm-hmm.
can improve for sure. So, how did you, just curious, kind of going back, like where did all this innovation for you to like think outside the box? Because you seem that way, Janet. Like you're an outside the box thinker. Where did that come from?
I'm not sure unless it's that I'm trying to think ahead,
Yeah.
um, and pass the tip of the nose, and what's going to be the effect of the decision or the actions that I make now. Is there going to be something out in the future that it will impact?
Right.
Um, One of the things when I'd worked with younger engineers and trying to solve a problem, look at how they could provide service to maybe a new subdivision or a new business. I say, yes, what you've designed, what you've done will work for this one situation.
Yeah.
That's the local look. Take a step back and do a global look. Am I
Mm.
selling myself short? Am I selling the utility short? And henceforth, maybe the public. If I go a little bit bigger, if I go a little bit deeper, if I take another route, can I serve more than just this one area? Can it be extended to, for future service? So,
Yeah.
and that may be part of it there. And I've seen changes in the technology, witnessed that, from where treatment was facultative lagoons. And if you had an odor problem, the operator went out there and cut figure eights with a John boat until he, got it aerated. And, to technology now where, you're watching your trends of, your oxygen and aeration and things going on in the plant, and you're making adjustments from a control panel rather than figure eights in a John boat in an old facultative lagoon.
Yeah. That's funny. I I remember my dad doing that stuff at the plant sometimes, getting these lagoons aerated. I was like, it's I was like, is that what we do now? That's how you got to do it. That's how you got to. You used to have to get it done if you didn't have an aeration like pump or system in
Mm-hmm.
place. That's for sure. That's funny. So if you're talking about the way we traditionally have done things, have we gone far enough now with like procurement and bringing in those technologies as those new products, and have we done a good job bringing in those things into our
Mm-hmm.
infrastructure now, or is it still really difficult?
I think by and large, we're still a risk averse industry.
Yeah.
And it is something we taking risks, we're going to need to get a little more comfortable with. I like to
Yeah.
use the phrase fail forward, fail trying,
Okay.
not sitting there not doing something because you're scared of failure. But I
Ooh.
think everyone involved um, need to be a little more embracing and willing to try the new and the unknown. The worst
Yeah.
that you can have, worst that, to me that can happen is, okay, it didn't work, so we know not to do that, but take another path. Now, there's always that financial aspect, and your utilities, are, have to be very conscious about that. But I was just on a conference call a little while ago, sitting in on a community meeting about intelligent water treatment
Hmm.
and about the innovations that are being proposed, new and exciting stuff, and convincing the regulators to allow it, the engineers to adopt it, the
Hmm.
utilities to try it. It's going to have to be a group effort to
Yeah.
push some of these things forward. And nobody seems to, everyone's hesitant to be the first one, but
Always, always.
somebody's got
Yeah.
to be first.
Yep, that's been my experience when I've, gone to public works buildings and met with a director or an engineer,
Mhm.
and they're like, "Wait, has anyone ever used this?" And I'm like, "Well, yeah, there's a couple, but," they're like, "Well, it's not next door, or
Yeah,
what used to be funny. Yeah, go ahead.
who has done this before? Who can I talk
Right,
to?
right.
And if well, it's real popular in Europe, England, Sweden, somewhere like. Okay, where in the United States has it been tested?
Right.
So.
I used to have it where I'd treat like maybe a sewer. Let's say I put a product into a sewer system next door to the community, and it still wasn't enough. They're like, "Well, our sewer's different." And I'm like, "Man, it was right next door. Come on." Yeah. So
Mhm.
but I can see where there is a lot of risk because if you look at, and I'm heading down a path of like procurement thinking now, but it's you've had a lot of traditional like procurement of ways to get around procurement where there was some bad actors kind of got into it, and I think that's where it all kind of started. We used to have, when I was selling, they were like, "Oh, you're a snake, there's a snake oil," and I'm like,
Oh yeah.
where did this come from? Like, and they used to
Mhm.
get the phone calls on the phone and they'd be like, "Hey, we're sending you a 50-gallon drum," and that kind of stuff that was happening back in the day. I've heard, and I'm like, where that just messed up everything, I think.
Mhm.
So what do you think about procurement in general? Like, just curious.
Um, it can be great, and sometimes it can be quite a challenge.
Yeah.
Um, right now, with the monies that have been appropriated, and utilities are taking advantage of. Procurement is going to be a bit of a challenge because everyone is trying to do the same thing, and we're all trying to tap the same resources, the same suppliers, the same contractors, the same consultants, um, and everybody has gotten very busy.
Yeah.
So we may have to come up, our financial folks may have to come up with more and creative ways of securing things, or being a little more lenient on the number of quotes you have to receive, the lead times that you can allow.
Hmm.
Um, uh, I mean, those are some of the challenges that I was starting to see
Yeah.
um, right before I retired.
Yeah.
So,
There's definitely a trend going on with that. And people are trying to, just look at their budgets and where they're going to get the best
mhm.
value for their for the problems that they have, and put those solutions to work, and what's going to be the best, option for them to get that in place. So, but I think you will eventually, with AI, like we just talked about, AI technology, a lot of that stuff will change over time, and it'll become hopefully more streamlined, and we'll make faster, better decisions, and then we can get infrastructure, either maintained
Mhm.
or fixed, or repaired faster. So that would be ideal. Where do you think, water system wise and the infrastructure? We're talking about leaks now, like leaks in the system, and being able to understand like how much water loss that's occurring out there. And I've heard a bunch of numbers, and I don't know if you can speak to this or not, but it where do you see the issues that we've had with like materials and pipe leaks, things like that? We just don't have enough funding, or is it just, what are some of these reasons that we're running into stuff?
And I think some of it is we have um, our systems are out of sight and out of mind. And
Right.
oftentimes a leak can go on for a very long time before it's finally detected.
Yeah.
Um, with some of the platforms and programs now that are using predictive modeling based on your past leak information, your material, and they factor more into it now. It's not just material and age, but your ground conditions, your topography, etc. To do this predictive modeling about where your next failures might be or where they might cluster. Um, we have a lot of very old infrastructure all throughout the country,
Yeah.
and it is not going to be inexpensive to replace because it is all brownfield. It is in developed areas. I
Yeah.
used, and in my last couple of years, I was focused in rehab, and my mantra and my parting words to my staff were, all the easy projects are built.
Yeah.
We are going to be faced with challenges, and I mean, things are just wearing out.
Yeah.
um, I what some of my interaction with the public has been, are you still driving a 50-year-old car?
It's a good
um,
point.
if you are, it's probably had some maintenance and updates. It may very well be a classic. Well, we've got some pipelines in the ground that are past classic now. There,
Yeah. It's true. Very true. Yeah.
yeah. So I think age is factoring into it. Accessibility. Definitely, the technology can help you now. I think is in place that can help you make informed decisions, so you can be very strategic about what you do. But there's I'll throw in, there's a communication component. You really have to engage your public early on when you're about to disrupt their life
Right.
by laying a new sewer line on their street, or an expansion of a collection system in an area where they may see big trucks come rolling down a right of way across their property. um,
Right.
Keeping them engaged and part of the conversation as we take on these challenges with addressing our aging infrastructure, and keeping it compliant and functioning as things in the areas grow, all the development that's going on, and the economic boom that have seen here in recent years.
Yeah, you're you're right on with the transparency and communication. Excuse me. I think that's a big thing that we need because now people have their phones. Everything's digitized.
Mhm.
Everything's information. They're getting it constantly, daily, seconds. I think that's. I was talking to another public works director yesterday, and they have a really good system where they're getting a lot of people going to their websites. But I think that's one thing we lacked in our utilities and public works departments is making sure we have better communication and more transparency. And I think we're getting there, but it's not like it's not like like 10 years ago, there was nothing. Everything was pretty siloed up and you didn't know much about everything, kind of going back to your out of sight, out of mind.
And I
But
think our public utilities are starting to realize that they need to have a communications person
yeah,
uh, on staff, to help get the word out ahead rather than after,
yeah,
and be there, whether it's through a website or somebody at the end of a phone line that can talk to someone and help allay fears and advance communication to explain what's going on. And, um, you know, I'll use biosolids as an example of beneficial use of biosolids. That's an area where we could do better education to eliminate the fear factor.
right,
Um, and like where we're doing rehabilitation projects where you would be working in a developed area, yes, it's going to be an inconvenience. We acknowledge that. We are very sorry, but if you'll wait, um, the juice is going to be worth the squeeze if you just let us give it a really good squeeze.
love it. It's a great analogy. So I'm going to take a little U-turn on this conversation. I want to talk about being a woman in the industry.
Hmm.
What it was kind of like for you coming up in the ranks, so to speak, and being a part of the generation where it was really male dominated. That whole the industry is still really male dominated. So what was that like for you coming up through the channels?
Well, I've always been outnumbered,
Yeah,
not necessarily outmanned, but outnumbered.
like it.
Um, acceptance has been hard. My peers are more accepting than previous generations, and I say that because my peers I was in school with. Um,
Yeah,
we were in the labs together. We were in the classrooms together. We were suffering through the same tasks and things. Um, it I noticed, at different points in my career, when I got a few more wrinkles and some gray hair, it, folks tended to be a little more accepting. That
okay,
I really you know, did know what I was talking about or trying to communicate. Um, it was always an effort in learning how to communicate and effectively, and how that person needed to be communicated to, but also realizing that you know, some folks I was never going to convince, so I might need to get some help um, getting it, getting the point across.
right,
I did feel sometimes like I had to run faster and leap higher, uh, but I was not scared to work hard to get where I
yeah,
wanted to be and to be accepted. I'm seeing more and more women coming into the industry, particularly in the environmental
yeah,
industry, and that and some so thrilled to see some really bright and promising young people coming into this industry now. Not as many as I would like to see.
right,
Um, you know, so, but that I won't lie. There's been some challenges, but I knew there were going to be some. I knew there were
yeah.
going to be some.
If you had to look at yourself going into the future, what's it look like now for Janet going into the future?
Well, I promised myself I wouldn't say yes to anything for the first 90 days.
Right.
Um, and I have pondered, do I want to continue in the industry? I was in it 40 years. Yes, I'm going to continue in the industry. It may very well be through volunteerism um, with the Water Environment Association of South Carolina and with the Water Environment Federation. I think that those are both excellent avenues to get the word out and stay engaged. Um, I have several possibilities. I could do consulting work on a limited basis. I could do grant writing on a limited
Nice.
basis, but I would not be chained to a desk. Would have some options for doing that. I want to really be an ambassador for the industry. I
Yeah.
want to be the one encouraging young people to look at this seriously as a long term career, whether they want to go public or private, and to realize the positive impact that they can have on their community. I know we talked about the public health aspect,
Right.
but I'm not going to let you get me on tape as to what I'm planning on doing because I'm trying to leave all my options open. But
Yeah.
at least for the first 90 days, the focus is going to be on family and on my commitments to the Water Environment Federation.
Love it. Love it. And you're going to do an amazing job wherever you go. We already can tell from your past experience and what you're telling me, you're going to just thrive in anything you get put into. So it's great to have someone like you out there and have the drive and passion that you do. So thank you, Janet, for your service. It's been
Oh,
fantastic.
you are welcome. I have enjoyed a very good career in the water industry.
How did and I got one quick kind of funny question for you? Maybe how did you know Bill Davis?
Bill and I are both members of the Water Environment Association of South Carolina. So
Okay.
our paths have been crisscrossing for years. You don't get into this industry without um, realizing very quickly that this community is interconnected in numerous ways.
Oh yeah.
And some of the best advice I ever got from a fellow engineer was in this water environment industry, you need to be nice to everyone because you're either going to work with them or work for them at some point in time.
Yeah.
So that's how I got to know Bill was through our involvement, and Bill had followed behind me, getting involved in the Water Environment Federation. He is a delegate representing South Carolina, and he is incoming speaker elect to the House of Delegates for the Federation.
Yeah. 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 He's very fun to talk to, very smart,
Mhm.
and just very passionate about what he does. So I was just curious because he connected me. He's like, "You need to talk to Janet." I was like, "Yes, I'm going to talk to Janet." And then after I looked at your background, I was like, "This is a great setup." So thank you again for your time, and thank you for joining us and giving the audience a look into what Janet's done throughout her career and what the future looks like. I truly appreciate that.
Oh, well, you're welcome. I appreciate the invitation and the opportunity to tell about this career and the possibilities for anyone who might be considering getting into it. So,
I love
one
it.
fun wastewater is wonderful. Don't forget that. Okay.
Right, right. How can people get a hold of you if they wanted to reach out?
I am on LinkedIn.
Okay.
If people wanted to find me, that right now, I would say that would be the best way while I'm in this transitioning into retirement. It'd probably be the best way to reach out to me to get
Love
in
it. How do
touch.
you, real last, one more question. How do you like LinkedIn? This is a new way of connecting nowadays.
I am getting better at LinkedIn,
Yeah.
um, how to follow it, how to post. Um, and I'm finding it's a real way to connect with folks in our industry and what's going on. And you sort of leapfrog on and on and on into other, other drill down into more specific areas. So I am getting used to relying on LinkedIn, I starting to catch myself in the morning that's one of the, buttons I click when I pick up my device is what happened on LinkedIn last night while I was asleep. So
It is a really innovative platform, the way they've put it together. I was telling a friend of mine, it was like, man, I used to travel all the time, being away from my family, visiting public works facilities or, utility facilities. And I was gone for so long. And now I didn't, when I finished my career at the previous company I was just at, 3 years ago, I didn't know what I was going to do, how I was going to stay connected to the industry. And LinkedIn's been one of those platforms that, man, it just keeps you connected and keeps you involved, and you get updated, like you're saying, like you get the updates on like what's going on with everything in the industry real fast. But thank you again so much for joining me. I truly appreciate it. And you have a good rest of the week and the weekend.
All right. Thank you so much, Chad. I appreciate this opportunity.
Thank you for listening to the Infrastructure Hot Seat podcast. We hope that this show brought you some insight on relevant topics within the infrastructure world. Please join us every 2 weeks on Tuesday for the next episode. If you're interested in being a guest on this podcast, please set up a 15-minute interview with your host at calendly.com/Chad Smeltzer.